All right, everybody. It is College Pro Reacts episode 2 that we are getting into tonight. We are going to be checking out a interesting show which my partner loves a lot called A Different World. Specifically, we're going to be checking out episode 6, episode 4 of season 6, entitled Somebody Say Ho. What makes this one interesting is that um, we will see not a court case, a code of conduct case uh, done in the popular media. So, a little bit of context for this episode before we dive into it. Um, the episode came out in 1992, so it is a bit old, talking about 30 years or so since it came out. Um, One thing that means is that we're going to be dealing with some older laws that may not be the most up to date for today's world. It also means that some of the language that they use may not be quite what we would expect or use nowadays. Um, I should grab my good microphone. I should grab my good microphone. That's my bad. But some of the language might be a little different than what we use nowadays, and there might be some issues around that. Also, it is incredibly difficult to find a good cut of this episode anywhere online. A Different World is not streaming on one of the regular channels, so we're going to be using this sort of janky looking version from Facebook. However, if anyone knows of a good place or way to find this episode, or just A Different World in general, I would love to hear it. So with that in mind, I'm going to be quiet and I'll hit play and provide some commentary on A Different World, Season 6, Episode 4.
Way ahead of you, Charmaine. 4:30 sharp. And you know, I must say, it is a blessing to be friends with the smartest sister in class.
Thank you. Another thing, Dorian, would you talk to that inconsiderate roommate of yours?
As they're talking through the introduction, I'll throw out a few things to keep in mind. Hillman College is a private institution, so we are at a private institution. It's also an HBCU, a historically black college or university. And since we're in season 6, some of the students from the first 4 seasons are now professors and faculty at the institution in order to keep continuity among the cast.
I do not intend to jump or warm it up all night long.
Trust me, Charmaine, warming it up all night should be the least of your fears.
You are so crazy.
God will punish you.
Beautiful campus, too.
Therefore, the probability that the Democratic or Republican Party will pick an African-American presidential candidate in the 20th century is 1 out of 1,000.
Woo. Go ahead, Charmaine. It's good to see somebody's got some blood flowing through their heads. Rest of y'all got your brains in the pawn shop. That's a joke.
That's pretty typical. You gotta tell students it's a joke.
If 40% of entering college students, Charmaine, why don't you let me ask the question first?
The only thing unrealistic about Charmaine's behavior in that scene is that she's not sitting in the front of the class. That student tends to sit to the front of the class. How do I know? I may have been that student for a couple of years. I got better.
Okay, that makes sense. Go ahead, Mr. Wayne.
All right. If 40% of entering college students never get degrees, what's the probability that out of 6 students, half will have one? Terrell, my brother, hometown. How we go about solving this?
Well, we got to bust the binomial probability function because 1, the selection of 6 students is a sequence of success-failure trials.
True.
2,
Well,
each trial is independent of the result of the other trials.
Yep.
And 3, the probability of success is the same in every trial. Booyah!
what I love about that is that's pretty much accurate. Like, you know, a little technical, but they're all independent cases, et cetera, et cetera. So good on whoever wrote that
Fresh out the pawn shop here. Why don't you come on and work it out on the board for us?
No, that's all right. I wouldn't want to step on Miss Charmaine's toes.
Miss Charmaine.
Anything to assist the educational process, Mr. Wayne.
That's right.
So she has a sign on her back with some slander on it, some cruel words. So what we have here will be interesting because normally in a college conduct case, we don't get to see what's actually happening in the real world. In this case, we actually can go back and rewind and see it. But so she has Digit Ho written on her back, and we'll see what happens.
What's so funny?
Hey, the joke is over.
Digit? Huh?
Who did this?
Terrell Walker, he set me up.
Charmaine? Easy. Brother, what does Digit Ho mean?
I guess it means she'll do anything for a math problem.
Mr. Wayne, you're not going to let that hood get away with that.
Hood?
Oh.
Girl, who you calling?
So, yep, words being met with other words in a negative light. This is escalating. Let's see if the professor can stop it.
Easy. This is not junior high school. This is college. Now you owe her an apology.
It's true.
For what?
That might be
Come
true.
on, man. Bet. Charmaine, I'm very, very sorry. Ho.
And right there, Terrell just opened himself up to an actual code of conduct case. Whether or not he put that tag on her back, calling another student a hoe is not okay. That said, Charmaine, nope, you don't get to hit him just because he called you a word.
Get in the corner. Get in the corner. Back up. Get in the corner. Come on, easy, Charmaine. Just breathe. Charmaine, just breathe. Just breathe. Go get some water.
So having to end class, having to physically remove a student from class, those are all real troubling. I wish I could say that 30 years later, we've never had that happen. But in my line of work, we have had students who had to be removed from class or asked to leave due to being disruptive. In terms of the faculty having to actually push them out the door, I've never seen it, but I'm sure that that's happened somewhere. That said, you really don't need to be manhandling students and pushing them around. That's hyped up for TV.
What is the matter with you?
Look, Mr. Wayne, I'm sorry, but she shouldn't have called me no hood.
I don't care what she called you. You are a man, boy.
Decent joke.
Come on, man.
Doesn't age
Why are
well.
you trying to play me? I know you wanted to laugh when you saw that sign.
Listen. What you better know is that if you ever get out of line in my class like that again,
Yeah.
Terrell, you understand me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay.
That's probably the realest shot right there in the entire episode. There's so many times where students will come in and they'll say something and I'm like, that's not okay. This is extremely serious and it shouldn't happen again. And as soon as they walk out, the surrealness and the audacity of what they're talking about hits. And it makes it just impossible not to laugh, because sometimes you have to laugh in order to not cry.
Pardon me, my brother, but perhaps this will get you through the day.
Wow. Homemade cookies.
Homemade Christian cookies. See, this right here, this is the 10 Commandments.
This is a whole nother
And this
thing.
right here is Jesus.
You gave Jesus a Jerry curl.
That's an Afro fool. You know.
So this is interesting because I'm not familiar with the show or the subplot, but a student giving another student religion-themed cookies
Feet of grass,
is
hair like
intriguing.
wool. I do know my scriptures.
They're really well done, big cookies.
Gina, this is stupid.
You better watch it, Terrell, because God don't like ugly.
You can pray for salvation.
Ooh, Terrell's really digging himself
I demand he
hole.
gets what he deserves.
Charmaine, I am not arguing with you. You're right. He's wrong. Beyond that, what can I do?
Do I detect a problem, or am I just hearing a loud mouth?
Today, during my statistics class, another student got up and called me a
Hussy?
Try again, D.
A hoe?
Oh, damn, that was my next guess.
So that's also pretty darn close. A lot of times students will feel uncomfortable using words, or they may not want to quote words, or they may just be traumatized and not want to tell us what they were called. And when that happens, we have to be a little more trauma informed about our guesses. Maybe ask them to write down, but yeah, sometimes you gotta help students get the word out of their mouth.
Charmaine, what kind of a little pig would call you something like this?
Terrell Walker, he's a natural born thug. Dean, how will he be disciplined?
Now, just a minute, Charmaine. One reason parents send their kids off to
that's
school
true
is so they can
too.
learn to solve their own problems without running to mommy, daddy, or the dean of students.
That's really interesting because there used to be this there's this idea and this myth in higher ed of in loco parentis, meaning in place of the students, which is the idea that the faculty and the staff are in charge of keeping the students safe. Realistically, though, that's not how it goes. We try to keep them safe and we try to help them mediate problems, but it's as a bystander stepping in, not as the I said it, therefore you must do it type of person that Charmaine seems to be expecting the dean to take on. That said, a lot of times the students do want us to take on their problems. So, same issues coming up 30 years later in terms of what students expect from us.
Pardon me, Dean, but it could be argued that Charmaine's rights as a Hillman student have been violated.
But argue how, Freddie, with just one word?
Yeah, but look at student policy.
Okay.
A student is punishable for any verbal or physical behavior that stigmatizes an individual based on race, religion, or gender.
I know the law, Miss.
That's a really interesting policy. And for the time, especially 30 years ago, that's a very progressive policy as well, having gender be included. That said, it makes sense because at the time we had laws requiring that sex be protected, and sex and gender were generally conflated more in the 90s. So I can see where they're coming from. And it's on TV. They had to include it for it to make sense in the story. That said, the dean just called policy law, so let's see how this goes.
Anita Hillman.
Furthermore, Dean Davenport, I am most concerned that if we condone the use of derogatory words against female students, pretty soon they'll think they can use derogatory words against female faculty.
Oh.
That's a stretch. But it worked for that, Dean.
I'll just have to check into this.
Maybe not. Oh my God.
This guy right here is a trip, his brother.
One of your pupils?
Yeah. This afternoon, he put a sign on Charmaine's back that said, "Digit hoe," because she'll do anything for a math problem. Hell no.
What is the punchline?
Come on, you get it. Digit hoe, she'll do anything for a math problem.
I found that joke juvenile and deplorable. And so is your sense of humor, Twine. You are a teacher now.
I agree with Whitley. I am not generally sympathetic to her in this show, but she makes a good point. It's not a good joke. It's his play on words might be interesting, but the joke.
If you don't set that boy straight, I will.
Oh, no, stop it. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Make him drink your coffee? Relax.
Hey, so glad to have run into you.
Yes, Whitley and I are just about to have something to eat. You want to join us?
Would you like some swine?
Well, as appetizing as that sounds, I'll pass. Would that young man happen to be Terrell Walker?
Yep. 1,500 on his SATs. Hey, Terrell, come here for a second. It's my wife, Whitley Wayne.
I do.
And
Why is
this,
he
of course,
standing
you
like
know,
that
is
over the
Dean
chair?
Davenport, I gotta tell you, I like your style. You got it going on.
That I do. However, Charmaine Brown has officially filed a complaint against you.
All right, this ain't gonna happen in the middle of the cafeteria like this. This would be something where, in modern times, he would be given an email saying we need to talk, but from the dean or whoever's in charge of student conduct. 30 years ago, probably a letter or something like that. But it ain't. I hope it didn't happen in the cafeteria. Oh my!
This is a summons for you to appear in Hillman Student Court.
Oh,
Court?
Wait, Dean, is this about...
Student
This is about
court.
Mr. Walker creating an uncomfortable environment and inhibiting another student's education.
There we
You
go.
can't be serious.
Making another student uncomfortable, problematic, but hard to touch with student conduct in a public institution, easier to hit on in a private institution, and Lord in heaven, inhibiting the classroom environment because of the fight, that could stick.
I don't believe
Oh,
this.
Terrell, Dean, not to excuse what happened, but
Yeah.
it's just a harmless joke.
Harmless,
Oh,
Mr. Wayne?
that's
I don't
excusing,
think
not
so.
explaining.
You see, it's bad enough when others disrespect our people, but it's doubly offensive when we do it to ourselves. Now, Mr. Walker, you can be certain that this court is no joke.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I may have it going on,
He got swag.
but if you're found guilty, you'll be going out.
So that's another huge difference. Public institutions, there's more due process rights. We would not be able to suspend or expel a student over just one incident very easily, unless it's like huge, like bringing a weapon on campus. But one thing too is it's private. It's between the institution and the student. And it involves an investigation and things, especially here in my state of Georgia. However, at a private institution, way less due process is required by law, and they simply have to follow their policies. So if the students have all agreed to this court being a open thing, then it is what it is, and that's their process and their policy. Now, is the dean doing this for the right reasons, or is she being personal?
I think we need to be patient with misguided brothers like
personal.
Terrell. For hundreds of years, brothers have been a supreme target for oppression. I mean, you know, to bloom a flower must be nurtured. Sisters, don't give us a lawnmower. Give us some sunlight and water.
Oh, please. The sun has set and the well is dry. Well, maybe Shafa has a point. Shouldn't we just forget about this? Terrell probably didn't even mean it.
Well, how do you know?
Not meaning it.
I mean,
not
even if he
saying it,
did,
they're
we should turn the
different.
other cheek, right, Dorian?
Well, you see, America has tried to emasculate brothers.
Amen.
But we need to learn to start turning to our sisters and not on them.
All right.
That's why I'm defending Charmaine at the trial.
I don't think Charmaine needs defended. Also, representation at a conduct hearing or a trial is very interesting. We have, at my institution, we have advisors where you can help someone basically not put their foot in their mouth, but they don't have the ability to actually represent you. So this is a very different thing 30
Well,
years
seriously,
ago.
though, if that was me, it would have been on. I would have clocked the brother and the store.
Charmaine did try to
Well, I'm
clock him.
sorry I missed out on your charm school training.
And you should be, because that's why you're in trouble.
I tried to clock the...
Oh,
Terrell,
Not a
can I
good
have a word with you,
sign.
please?
Yo, what you got to say won't even faze me. I've been called everything from Pee Wee Herman to Rick James.
Has anyone said that they want to represent you?
Oh, a trick question now.
Am I supposed to be impressed by this macho bravado? Look, little brother, I know that you are scared to death. You need my help. And I'm a law student, so I need the experience.
Which is interesting since conduct hearings and trial courts are different. But I guess in the world of Hillman and a different world, they have to be similar in order for it to work.
I know that representing you is going to be like representing the devil, but even the devil has his side of the story, and I think it should be heard.
Why? Why, it's an open and shut case. Miss Nose and Air got to open her mouth, and I was supposed to shut mine.
Terrell, you can get suspended, or worse, you can get kicked out of school. Now, I know that you are too
Apparently
smart
so.
to let that happen.
Fine, you're my lawyer.
He's up on the gratitude.
Oftentimes, though, students don't want to be represented or helped out. They want to just get it over and done with. Okay, here's the actual trial. God, that word sounds wrong coming out of my head. So the dean actually has a gavel. There's an audience. Yeah, this would not be how it goes in my institution or any other public in Georgia. It's a private deal.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury,
Not a jury, maybe a hearing panel with three to five faculty, staff, and students, but like this has a jury and an audience and a gallery. Hillman does it big.
the prosecution will attempt to convince you that this is a case about the rights of one student, Charmaine Brown. Wrong.
They're also adversarial,
This is a
which
case
isn't common.
about the rights of a student named Terrell Walker. A right which we all hold very dearly.
First Amendment.
Freedom of speech and expression.
Okay, yeah.
Now, doesn't freedom of speech
But-
mean that I have the right to get angry, especially when I'm provoked? Well, the laws of the land say yes. But Hillman's current policy, which was written 20 years ago, says
So we're talking about a policy written in the 1970s.
Says no. I say it is time to rewrite these primitive and archaic rules, and I shall prove this in my defense.
So what's interesting here, I'm going to play lawyer for a split second because I'm on TV, so I can play a lawyer on TV, though I'm not in real life. She's basically talking about jury nullification for a code of conduct violation due to First Amendment rights at a private institution. So what's boggling my little brain here is that, number one, the institution should have addressed this stuff over the years. But number two, he's not being charged because of what he said, but because of the effect it had, which is that disrupted class and it denigrated another student. And even if we say, well, he has the freedom to say that, a private institution can put some pretty harsh restrictions on the First Amendment and really say, like, no, you're not allowed to say certain things. You have to toe the line. And unlike a real court, there's people with banners.
Punk, ugly, stupid, old.
Oh, I look a lot younger kicking your butt.
Brothers and sisters, forgive me. Mr. Gaines has the right to get angry. I was out of line and disrespectful. Oh, but don't I have the right to do that?
Yeah.
Or do you have the right to be respected? You see, the defense says you don't. And the defense also calls all rules archaic. Well, I think they promote unity and upliftment. Right. You see, those of us that do not respect our own must be punished, because only a punk would not recognize that disrespecting ourselves is ugly, stupid, and old.
That's an interesting argument to make, that we have the right to be respected versus the right to free speech. I will say, like, being respected is one of those things that definitely should be there. And at the same time, it's hard to tell where that fits in line with policy and which one gets more weight. That said, we could have a much deeper conversation over whether rights are created naturally and exist regardless of what policy says, or if they're written and made real because of the policy. And that's a philosophy argument I'm not wanting to get into this late at night.
I love my Freddie, but I think she's in over her head.
Your Honor, as my first witness, I would like to call Professor Wayne to the stand. Mr. Wayne,
Witnesses
what was
being in
Terrell's
the room
response
together?
when you asked him
Nope.
to apologize to
Request
Charmaine?
He said, "I'm very, very sorry, Hope."
And did you have to dismiss class early?
Yeah, a few of the students wanted to send them on an ambulance ride.
So then it would be fair to say that Terrell disrupted the entire class. Thank you.
He's stating a finding or a decision there, not asking a question. So that's inappropriate. Now, he could argue that, but it should not be a statement. He could ask a question. In my world, in 30 years ago at Hillman, it was very different, apparently.
Mr. Wayne, as the teacher, you set the overall tone for the class. What did you think when you saw that sign on Charmaine's back?
I felt it was deplorable and juvenile.
I see. How can you be so certain, Mr. Wayne, that ho wasn't written as in ho, 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 Merry Christmas?
That's the stretch.
Because Terrell said that Charmaine would do anything for a math problem. You know.
I get it. It's deplorable, but it's amusing.
No.
Well, which one is it?
Objection, lunatic badgering the witness.
Wait, she's in the jury box. She can't object. This is why you don't have audiences for hearings.
I thought the sign was a joke at first.
Thank you, Mr. Wayne.
Charmaine, why did you come to Hillman College?
To help my family someday.
That he needs to be allowed to finish his answer. To put it simply, students need to be allowed, and faculty and witnesses need to be allowed to give a full and complete picture. This isn't court where you're able to ask leading questions and stuff like that. You should be asking open-ended questions about what happened and listening to the whole thing.
Everybody thinks I'm trying to be a snob, but I'm not. There's a lot of competition out there, and I just want to be the best.
Will you please tell the court how you felt when Terrell called you that obscene name?
Disrespected.
Good. Yep. Valid feeling.
Your witness, Freddie.
Charmaine, it is terrible to be disrespected, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Very terrible.
Yes, and it is very terrible to be looked down upon and belittled.
Yes.
I mean, doesn't that make you angry?
Furious.
Yes,
What's
and
the
aren't those
question?
exactly the same feelings you were trying to elicit when you referred to Terrell's music as gold tooth music?
No.
Or when you called him a hood?
Well, I called him a hood because he taped that sign to my back. It was his stupid idea of a joke.
I see, Charmaine.
So we're getting into sort of an interesting thing of, does one wrong let another wrong become a right? And is it okay to meet wrong with wrong? Some folks say yes. I tend to say no. This is where we could have shared responsibility for the negative outcome.
Have you ever referred to another woman as a hoe?
Oh, sookie.
The court is waiting,
That's
Charmaine.
probably a yes.
I may have said something on occasion or two, but I was only joking.
Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly what you said Terrell was doing, joking.
that doesn't mean
Yeah,
that it's
but
okay
thank
for
you.
him
No
to
further
do
questions.
that.
No, it's not the same thing.
No further questions.
Also, the clapping and stuff, again, this is why we don't have audiences. It's a circus.
All right, girl, get up out of that chair. You ain't under the dry at a beauty salon. Go on, sit down.
I like the
Now,
beanie.
Gina, you were there when Terrell blurted out that obscenity.
Yes, I was.
It's not an
In your
obscenity.
opinion, was he joking?
No.
So then you would say it was an insult rather than a joke.
Yes, but he meant it as a joke.
How would
I don't
you
really know.
Yeah, you don't know what someone thought.
When you saw Terrell put that sign on Charmaine's back, were you amused?
I didn't really see him put the sign on her back.
Oh, well then, one more question. How did your roommate Charmaine feel the rest of that day?
I could tell she felt really, really bad.
And she was sitting right behind her, so she would have seen it or should have seen it, we think.
Gina, I think the court is moved by your honesty. And I also think it is clear that Terrell's joke not only affected Charmaine, but others as well.
Mm-hmm. Probably.
Your witness, Freddie.
That's not a stenographer, but I love it.
Gina, I would like to back up a moment, please. Where do you sit in relation to Charmaine?
Yeah.
Sort of behind her.
That's a really good, real contextualization